Hi everyone, I'm James. Welcome back to our second session of blind tasting. Of course, I'm the brand ambassador for Masi here in the western part of Canada. And basically we're going through a total of 6 different wines this year, just with the intent of visiting some of the corners of Masi's portfolio that you don't see every day, something that's a little unusual, but really where there's some real gems that you can find. And we're gonna learn a little bit about them through tasting. So today we're going to do wines 3 and 4, and you'll notice on these in particular I put temperatures, and you'll kind of see why that is. So as I open them up, both of these wines have corks. The first one, in fact, has a special type of cork that I'm a huge fan of, and you'll see the name of the cork right underneath the branding. It's called a diem. Now this is a type of composite cork different from previous generations. These corks are guaranteed to not have any cork taint, and they also tend to be very exceptional in terms of how they seal and protect the wine, almost even better than a screw cap does, because it allows the tiniest amount of oxygen exchange, but it's very consistent. In fact, a lot of the very, very best white wines in the world now, from Burgundy, Bordeaux, are sealed in these diem corks, which says something about their quality. So yes, the first wine is indeed a white wine, as we will see shortly. And the second wine, even though it says 10 degrees, is in fact a red. So let's pour them both out and see what we find. Okay. So wine number 1. Obviously there's only so many white wines in the Masi portfolio. But the first thing you notice on this wine is just intense citrus, lots of orchard fruits like those pear kind of apple notes. It's fairly intense. A lot of the whites in the Masi portfolio tend to be very delicate, more on the light-bodied side. This wine, definitely you notice a more intense aroma. Yeah, so the freshness carries through, but you really get a lot of weight and viscosity. This is a white wine with a lot of mouthfeel, and it finishes lush, but again, the citrus and that crisp note I think keeps it fresh, and a fairly long finish. So yeah, wonderful, versatile white wine, something that again has a little bit more body, something that, if you were gonna have a Masi event, and you were leading up to Amarone's, a great first wine in that lineup. Okay, the second wine, first thing you notice is it's quite pale. There really isn't a ton of pigment to this, which tells you right away that this probably, Masi being from Valpolicella, we're probably in that general range. You get lots of those dried cherry, sour cherry, those spice notes, like the cinnamon, the baking spices, which is very typical of Valpolicella. Yeah, very crisp, refreshing. The fruit is really bright and it kind of pops on the palate, which is just absolutely lovely. And just an unusual, refreshing quality. And part of the reason I put 10 degrees is, this is a wine that you could in fact chill, not just cool, but I would argue even chill completely. Now, usually red wines don't take well to chilling because the tannins kind of tend to overwhelm the fruit qualities of the wine once it gets to a certain temperature. But given that a wine like this has such little tannin, chilling and serving it cold, the fruit and that brightness and that refreshing quality will persist, and it actually drinks quite well. And in fact, some people who may, think that they were not a red wine drinker, that maybe don't like the full body, higher alcohol, or that tannic presence and that drying presence of more full-bodied reds, probably could really get something out of this. Okay, so let's reveal the wines. So we'll start with the white, wine number 3, and it is a wine called Pian del Grigio from Masi Agricola. And you'll notice this wine actually doesn't even say Masi on it. It is one of what is called the Masi Historic Estates. So this is a partnership that Masi has with another estate, in this case Masi Agricola. They have similar arrangements with, for instance, Sergo Alighieri. But Masi Agricola is actually located about an hour and a half to 2 hours drive away from the Masi Winery in Trentino. And the family has just an absolutely wonderful, rich history. They set up there in the 1400s, and they bought part of a famous vineyard called Foyanage. A little bit of a tough word to read and pronounce, but this very famous vineyard has some wonderful characteristics. Just a very, very rich volcanic soil that has these big limestone gravels interspersed in it. It just creates a wonderful range of wines. Now, historically, the family built their wealth by controlling a lot of commerce that was on the river. And eventually they purchased the winery they're in now in the 1700s. And it's a wonderful estate. And in fact, the reputation of the wines was so great at one point. In fact, Napoleon himself stayed right on the estate, which is kind of fascinating history. So the winery had some ups and downs over time. I mean, they were smaller. Of course, as you might have guessed by the name, the Conti Bossi Fedregati, there was a little bit of an almost, royalty or wealth kind of associated. The family went through ups and downs. And after World War II, the family was in rough shape, but they actually came out in 1961 with a wine named after the vineyard that they own called Foyanage, and that's a red made with Merlot and Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon. And there had never been a Bordeaux blend produced in Italy prior to that, and so that was kind of historic. And Bossi Fedregati has that in their history, and of course the wines are still made there today. So fast forward a little bit to 2007, and Masi actually became involved. The family had some other issues, was looking for international distribution, and they came into the fold of the Masi Historic Estates at that point. So yeah, probably make some wonderful sparkling wines, but the two wines we tend to work with here in Canada are this wonderful Pian del Grigio Pinot Grigio and still the Foyanage Bordeaux blend. So as for the customer for this sits a little bit above Masi Agricola. So Masi Agricola is nice in that it has a little bit more weight and volume and complexity than, for instance, a Modelo Pinot Grigio. It's a nice step up. It's kind of on par with a wine like Campofiore, where you get that little bit of extra intensity, and it has the grape dry. And this wine does not feature any appassimento, and you know that because, of course, the appassimento sign is not on the bottle. However, I think this wine is wonderful for someone who's looking for more of that premium white wine experience, but maybe isn't looking for something like an oak Chardonnay. So, there isn't a ton of wines in that segment, and this is kind of a logical landing point because, again, it is Pinot Grigio, a grape that consumers are very comfortable with, but it kind of avoids some of the other premium wines that often have oak or a little bit more esoteric. So in other words, this is a slightly premium wine that has a really wide appeal in terms of potential market. And other regions that you might suspect would have premium wines, whether it's the mass market Italian Pinot Grigios, or maybe more importantly, the New Zealand Sauv Blancs, don't offer a ton of kind of upsell options. And what we've seen is that this wine slots perfectly into that segment where people are looking for something that's a little bit more familiar, but a little bit more premium. Okay, so wine number 2, well, I guess technically wine number 4 in our lineup is the Frescarita Bardolino. Okay, so Bardolino is kind of part of the Valpolicella. So we know Valpolicella, of course, the blend of Corvina, Rondinella, Molinara, and Masi, of course, has the Bonacosta, and the label at first glance looks almost identical. Bardolino is a region right beside Lake Garda, a lot of the similar rules. Tends to be a little bit cooler, it's a little bit more breezy, and as such, the wines tend to be even a little bit more delicate and bright than Valpolicella. Masi treats this a little bit different as well, going for a more elegant, fresher style. The Bonacosta Valpolicella gets some oak maturation, whereas this, the focus here is on the fruit and the freshness. And just a wonderful food wine, or just a wonderful wine to just enjoy on its own, clean and refreshing and delicious, and really versatile with food, and in particular when it's hot out. So anyways, hope you enjoyed these wines. picked up a few tidbits about two of those wines that are in the inventory in Canada that you may not have had a chance to visit before. Thank you.